Good afternoon, good morning to our fellows in the USA. Welcome on our conference call regarding 3 quarters results. It's been a year since we are listed on the stock exchange, so we are very happy that you are with us. Today's presentation will be given as usually by Mr. Tomasz Zadroga, President and Chief Executive Officer of the company, and Wojciech Topolnicki, Vice President and CFO. My name is Przemek Wasilewski. I'm heading Investor Relations. Before we start, one short information about technical features of the conference. We are sitting in front of a group of Polish investors and analysts, but there are also people watching us in the internet. Guys sitting here can obviously ask questions directly. People watching us on screens of their computers can send us an email. Email should be addressed freeq2010 at pgsa.pl. As usually, the questions then will be read out and answered. I think we can start, Mr. President.
Yep. Hello, good morning, good afternoon. Again, that's nice to be here together with you at each quarter. We would like to present our financial standings after 3 quarters, 2010. We would like to present current status of consolidation of the whole group, investment plan for this year and for the future, as well as acquisitions and disposals in our group. We want to present it just briefly, and after that to skip directly to Q&As. Probably all of you know our presentation. All figures are public, so it would be better to discuss with you, not to just to present. A few words about our results. Turnover is a bit lower than last year, but after exclusion of LTC, long-term compensation for long-term contracts, it is better than last year. So that's the good news. The next good news is that the third quarter is much better than second and the first quarters. The average increase for after this 3 quarters is 2.4%, and in the third quarter 3.2%. So it seems that just after consolidation we speed up our business. We are very close to our customers, to the final consumers. Currently we do not compete within one group. I mentioned that during last meeting that it happened that 3 our companies competed against themselves on the market. Currently it doesn't happen. We compete with our real competitors on the market, and it is shown in our figures. 3.2% increase in revenues after exclusion of LTC contracts. Net profit is better than last year. It is caused by consolidation process. It will be briefly presented by Mr. Topolnicki later on, or maybe now. Let's continue financial figures just briefly, and after that we will skip to other topics.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, everybody. Financial performance of the group. Let's have a look at page 4, right hand lower slide. You can see the most important thing that I would like to cover, which is the change in EBITDA, in the EBITDA split, which happened this quarter. Now I know that we have promised everybody, all the investors, an increase of roughly 5% in distribution each year, which is going to happen, but the overall dynamic of the distribution segment over the last 12 months has been horrific or very, very good. we have increased it from 17 to 24%, and there are a couple of reasons. Well, the main reason is that percentage-wise, the generation segment is slightly lower, and because of only because of that, the distribution share is increasing. The distribution share has increased because we are pretty successful with tariff groups and with the tariff for year 2010. But I would like to mention, and I would like to warn you, that please do not expect us to grow the distribution segment by another 5% in 12 months' time, because it is very probable that the president of the regulator in Poland will try to squeeze our cost. It is always a ping-pong game, which is, we have better results, they cut us. Then we squeeze our cost base, we have better results. Again, the cost base is being squeezed. So currently we are on the top of the hill, but it is quite probable that in the next couple of months the very good result which we have currently noted on the distribution segment will be slightly cut down, which doesn't mean that distribution is a horrible business. It's not going down, but definitely the dynamic of the evolution of this particular segment is not going to be to happen in the next couple of months, especially if we are talking about an extension of roughly 9% of our production capacities, because at the end of April next year we are going to switch online our new, the most modern and most efficient power unit in Poland, which is Bełchatów block number 13. So again, the percentage share of generation will increase, thus limiting slightly the distribution EBITDA share. Composition and development of EBITDA in our segments. Two remarks. Conventional down by 80 million zlotys roughly. It is the result of slightly lower production and keeping the cost structure as it was. Definitely one of our goals for next year budget to be corrected. Retail slightly down because of increased redemption cost of green certificates, and wholesale as well lower, but one of the reasons was a very high comparable base last year. LTC performance. LTC performance as projected this year, roughly 400 million zloty, 450 million zloty. Because of the fact that two of our power plants, that is namely Opole power plant and Turów power plant, are going to pay off their liabilities next year, we are considering the possibility to change the LTC approach in those particular power plants for a cash-based approach for next year. Because of that, we might note some changes in the previewed LTC curve. But because of the fact that it is a very important and hard to understand issue, we are going to start our guidance process. I think that within the next 2 months we will publish guidance about results, and specifically about the LTC issue for the next years, and we would like to cover the whole period until the end of the LTC contract, which is 2016. So hopefully that will give you some insight into the details of LTC booking procedures in PGE Group. No debt. We have been successful signing a very big bond program last week. It is the biggest bond program in Polish history, 10 billion zlotys. roughly 2.5 billion euro. The main goal of the bond program is to secure financing for our two currently running projects, which is Opole and Turów, which amount in total roughly 14 billion zlotys capex for the next 5 years. That is it. I think we can go to the consolidation highlights.
Consolidation program, the first phase, legal structure is almost done. We still have one pending point, which is currently a power plant in Opole. We believe we have a dispute with a group of small shareholders, but we strongly believe it will be finally solved and successfully will be consolidated end of this year with other conventional entities in our group, conventional generation entities in our group. Second issue, which is important, as you see on the structure, retail business is co-owner of conventional generation unit and distribution unit. It will be clarified within next few months. Currently, our lawyers prepare the final proceed how to solve this issue, and as mentioned before, mother company will be the only owner of all of these entities, conventional generation and distribution as well. Third point worth to mention here is that a small group of our employees didn't decide to convert their shares, so they still will be co-owner of second line businesses in our group. One of them is the State of Treasury, but please remember we still have an option until end of this year to acquire stakes in these entities, in the most powerful entities. That's one way option. So we have an option, the state has not, and until end of this year we will decide whether it is worth to acquire these stakes or to quit this transaction. And the last point, consolidation, mother company with wholesale arm, PGE Electra. We have a plan to make this acquisition until end of this year as well. So from January next year onwards, mother company PGE will be fully responsible for wholesale business in the whole group. What next? Next, as promised, will be the second phase of consolidation, saving program. Next week we have budget meetings with all our subsidiaries responsible for all revenues and costs within the group. Our targets are very ambitious, but it is too early to present our targets. We believe that just after approval of all budgets, we will come back to you and present potential savings in next 3 years coming out from this program, consolidation program. Current shareholder structure is clear after consolidation, after conversion act, and the last transaction taken by the government, by the state Ministry of the State Treasury. They have currently a bit above 69%, and the rest is free float on the market. Investment program.
Investment program is going according to plan. We have noted a 24% increase with regard to last year data, and the biggest investment chunk is the new power plant, the new unit in Bełchatów, which has successfully undergone electrical tests 1 week ago. We are planning to start the first technical firing process within 2 weeks. The projected previewed commissioning date stays at April 2011. The second big chunk is distribution. Distribution amounted for roughly 520 million zlotys aggregate value for 2010. With the rest of the capex, we are noting a general increase of roughly 20-25% with regard to last year data. The only part of this investment plan which will not be executed this year is the prepayment in the Opole power plant. We plan to have a look at the final offers to see the final offers in this particular tender being laid on the table this year. However, the previewed capex, the previewed prepayment for the Opole power plant extension has been shifted to first quarter next year, and the rest of the capex program is going as previewed. As of particular note, in the investment program, we have last week we have also signed the modernization agreements in Bełchatów power plant, 7 blocks from block number 7 to block number 12. It is going to be a modernization which will allow us to fulfill the requirements of the IPPC rules, especially with regard to sulfur dioxide, nitrogen and dust emissions. But because of the modernization, we are also able to increase power output on generators. We estimate that we will have a power output increase of roughly 20 to 22 megawatt per generator. There are 7 generators to be modernized. Therefore, we are talking not only about the extension of the lifespan of the facility, but also about an increase of the output of the Bełchatów unit by roughly 140 megawatts within the next 4 years. And as last remark to our investment program, Mr. President, Energa.
Just a few words about nuclear project, which is not here in the presentation because we have still unclarity on the market. We would like to stress that our target is 2020 for the first unit, and nothing has changed until today. July 2011, we want to start with official tender for the technology. Of course, until that, we need to have a nuclear law, which is currently under procedure within the government and will be sent soon to the parliament. So we strongly believe it will be finished end of second quarter next year, and it will enable us to start tender procedure mid of 2011 to be finished in mid of 2013, and after that to be sent to the nuclear body which must approve technology in the first site. And in our schedule, 2020 is possible to be achieved with the first unit, of course, not with the first whole power plant. Energa, we are currently just in the middle of the discussion with antitrust office. That's really good discussion, and after that we believe that still this procedure can be finalized this year. Disposals, the easiest Exatel, it seems that will be finalized this year. Currently we have final bidders on board. They do the due diligence in Exatel, and it seems to be finalized this year, I would say easily. So we are in line with this project. In Polkomtel, good news is that all shareholders are on board, 100% shares, We cooperate as all shareholders. This quarter, a memorandum will be sent to all potential investors, both strategic and financial ones. There is a huge interest, mainly from financial investors, infrastructural funds, and our internal target for all shareholders is to close this transaction end of second quarter next year. Other businesses are much less sexy, I would say. Of course, we sold 30 entities until today. 6 are closed down. One of with a small value, but really important to the market, is energy trading platform called POE, which was sold to Polish Warsaw Stock Exchange. And the good news to us is that just after this decision, current monopoly trading decreased prices for us as well by a couple of %. So it's really a few thousand percent. Yeah, of course it is difficult to say a few thousand, but let's say 99%. So huge decrease on the market for all companies being on trading, on wholesale trading. So it seems it was a good decision from us to build a competition on trading platform market. That's good for us, and it will be good for our results as well. That's it. Just most important issues. If you have any questions, please ask us. Thank you.
Okay, so time for questions. First chance for people who made the time and came here.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Piotr Dzięciołowski from Credit Suisse. One question on the distribution, because the results are better than expected. You said you guide to 5% annual increase. So what really is so much better in this business that can you explain, because all companies showed pretty good results, can you explain what is the tariff? Is it one-off impact, or how does it work? And second question I have on the CapEx. You mentioned 14 billion CapEx guidance for Opole and Turów. I quickly calculated that equals to 1.65 million euro per megawatt capacity. That is probably 10% higher than in Germany. Why do we build 10% higher cost? Or this is 14 billion is just provisional data, or and what kind of electricity price would you need to get the returns on these investments? Because if it is 1.65, 1.7, then we can calculate that the power price, I don't know, for me that would be 230, 240 zloty, the new entrant level. So how your expectations are here as well?
With regard to CapEx, the 14 billion that I mentioned is the general outline of the tenders which are going to be started. And our internal expectation is that definitely we will not achieve 14 billion, but much more less. It's a question how much more less we will achieve. To give you a comparable figure, I can tell you that we built a new power unit in Bełchatów for 1 million euro, 1.0, not 1.7 as you calculated. It is a tender process, so I hope we will have the freshest, the best market data just within a couple of months. So I would expect to see the market data by the end of this year, and our expectation is that it is going to be quite significantly lower than the values that you mentioned. Of course, if the value is lower than the new entrant cost that you mentioned is of course different, but please note that you cannot speak about a new entrant price with regard to PGE investments, because we are developing brownfield investments, which means that if the worst thing ever happens, which is a very high new entrant level, we will make a very easy thing to do, which is shutting down the old capacity and using the new one. Therefore, if there is not enough demand on the market, we will use a new source which will be much more efficient, much more less pollutant, and will close the circuit with the older blocks being held as backup units. The second question was about distribution tariff. The distribution tariff increase can be divided into two major facts. About 75% of the increase is directly due to the fact that we have a higher tariff. The remaining 25% would be the other part, which is the higher volume of electricity which is flowing through our distribution network. So the result on distribution is derived out of the fact that their product is sold higher on the market, but also because of the fact that there is more electricity flow within the network. So maybe it's not a good word, but they sell more electricity, or they handle more electricity than originally previewed. So the effect is about 25%.
Just a quick follow-up. So going into next year, we found out from Tauron that the WACC will be cut from 10.5% to 9.6%. Is the straightforward calculation that we multiply by your WACC times whatever the WACC is, times your RAB, whatever the amount of RAB is reflected in the regulation, and you will basically feel the whole percentage point decrease in your EBIT on the distribution? Or you mentioned that you expect distribution to go down.
I expect the EBITDA split within PGE to go down from the third quarter this year ongoing. So I don't expect to have any more 25% of our EBITDA generated in distribution, just because of the fact that we will sell 4.5 terawatt or 5 terawatt energy more next year. Because of this simple fact. So.
Piotr Popachuk, Erste Group. Could you describe the current situation concerning the advanced dividend?
That's clear. Currently, we know the results. We know mother company results, but until today we haven't discussed it internally. Still have a lot of time. It will be a decision of the management board, but just after discussion with the main shareholders, not the main shareholder, but with the main shareholders. First of all, we need to discuss about figure. And after that, about the date. Please remember, this is only movement of the same cash. Will it be paid end of this year or third quarter of the next one? We have to discuss with the main shareholders, and we will do that. Financially, we are fully prepared for advanced payment this year.
Okay. Next question, maybe from the internet.
Mr. Puchalski asked.
Okay, Paweł. Okay, Paweł, go.
Paweł Puchalski, DMBZBK. First question. Volumes, generation volumes. You reported lower volumes quarter on quarter. If we forget about seasonality, what volumes are we expecting for fourth quarter?
That is a very direct question for future results, so I'm not in a position to answer.
Okay, the other question is wholesale segment. You mentioned that you are suffering from lower margin realized on the electricity trading. Could you elaborate more on that?
in comparison to last year result, which was driven by some other other than operational inflows results in the wholesale business. So generally speaking, our margin did not suffer all that much. The difference has been noted in the first half of this year because of the trading scheme, because of a difference in trading scheme, but it was not more than maybe 1.5%. So I would say that the result was not material. The result would be the biggest difference would be the base effect, negative base effect, which is previous period we have had provision releases in this segment, and therefore we note now lower. Distribution wholesale business as such will disappear by the end of this year from our segmentation analysis, because we have made the decision to incorporate the wholesale business into PGE, into the PGE mother company, which will allow us to have all the energy flow through the mother company, and of course have the margin allocation straight on in the mother company. So you will not have to wait anymore for the result to come up by dividends, through dividends.
One more question on this subject. Do you expect the level of margins from the third quarter to be continued in following quarters, years, or it's just exceptionally low margin which should never appear again?
Generally, the margin level is not going to change drastically. So it is just the equation of the amount of energy traded by a margin which is pretty fair, pretty stable.
May I have one more question?
Last one.
Okay.
For now.
You mentioned minorities buyout, the remaining minorities buyout. Are these minorities, related to some kind of tax asset? My question would be on your potential real taxation reported in fourth quarter. If you buy out minorities in fourth quarter, what would be your reported tax rate in fourth quarter? Because in third quarter it was exceptionally low because of the change in group structure.
Not exactly. It was now thanks about the taxation issue, because definitely it is one of the points that has to be covered today. You will see a very low effective tax rate for the group, which was, if I recall correctly, 15.6% for the aggregate amount. But the result really is because of savings within the group, because of consolidation. Now, this is a pretty nice story. We have been able to free up a significant portion of our costs, which are going to be borne by the mine in Bełchatów after year 2040. Now, before the consolidation, when we had the power plant as a separate unit and the mine as a separate unit, the cost of the mine, which is related to recultivation, would never be redeemed. Never. Because the mine ceases to exist, but there is still roughly 800 million zlotys costs to be covered. This is the cost which is connected with the change of the geological structure of the mine, and the cost of filling it with water, which will last for about 50 years. Now, because the company will not be anymore, so the cost which will be borne by such a company is lost in tax terms. And because we have been able to combine the mine, which will cease to exist, with a power plant, which we preview will operate until the end of the world, the cost which will be borne by the mine because of recultivation of the old pit will be cost which will be deemed tax deductible in the power plant business. Therefore, we have been able to free up approximately 130 million zlotys, and this 130 million zlotys has been booked as negative tax effect. Therefore, we see an effective tax rate of 15% at the end of this quarter. A clean effective tax rate, which is free or which is cleaned of the Turów issue, or because of the Bełchatów issue, and minority interest from Polkomtel, amounts roughly 20.5%, so which is pretty sensible. I hope it is understandable. If not, questions I can maybe.
Thank you for explanation for third quarter tax rate, but if you bought out minorities, the remaining minorities, would it change your effective tax rate in fourth quarter?
No, why? No, I do not know any type of such calculation which would sustain it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. A question from Natalie Casali from JP Morgan. Can you give us an update of the discussion with government and antitrust office regarding Energa, given recent press speculation?
I don't know the press speculation, but
it was said that IPO might take place if the sale is blocked.
I don't know these speculations. Current status is, as I mentioned before, we are just in the middle of the discussion. We are after first round of Q&A session, I would say, and we still believe that this transaction will be finalized end of this year. It is difficult to tell about the scope of the decision, but we believe to finalize it this year and to pay for Energa to the state this year as well.
Next is kind of usual question. What price levels are you selling your power for 11, 12 and 13? And how much have you sold forward for these years?
You know, our decision was clear. We took a decision to sell almost 100% of electricity on the power exchanges now, I would say. So it will be like that. Currently, we've just started a selling procedure for 2011 mainly. Still, for today, we have only one power exchange with much better prices to the customers like we. But we of course are waiting for the second power exchange and the real competition on the market. Of course, we cannot wait with and to sell 100% electricity on the spot market. So we have taken just few transactions on 2011, and we will speed up in the next 4 weeks sharply. But I can't directly answer about percentages. But still confirm close to 100%. Of course, 100% according to the law, which in our case means close to 90%, because renewables energy and CHP's energy in cogeneration are excluded from this law. So close to 90% of generated electricity within the group will be sold directly via power exchange or power exchanges.
Next question from Natalie. Why personal expenses increased in Q3 versus Q3 2010 versus 2009, and do you expect this to continue?
The worst question to a CFO. Personal wages, wages and personal expenses, yes, they have increased significantly over the last quarter, but I would like to go into details in this particular field at the end of the year, because there are some during the year there are some fluctuations in wages because of some special events in the Polish, usually in middle of August. There is a special event for electro energy sector, and there are some additional payments or bonuses for the labor force, which does not allow us to have a very clean picture of the wages and in this particular quarter. But generally, yes, the problem is that we have noted some personal expense increases, which were not compensated by the fact that we were not producing more energy. So it is definitely one of our points for next year budget to clean the situation.
Okay, question from Fred Barazzi of Goldman Sachs. Can you quantify the impact of the cost squeeze that you talked about in distribution?
No, because I don't have data to talk about that. I mean, I can only tell you that the distribution tariff comprises three major parts. This is capex. This is operational expenses and depreciation, and we don't have an issue with depreciation nor capex, which is more than 2/3 of the tariff amount. But there is always a problem about the OPEX carryover, and OPEX carryover rate is very different for different companies in Poland. For the companies which constitute PGE business, depending on company, we vary between 55 and 80% carryover, which means that if we have $100 cost, in one company 55 will be deemed as appropriate, as legitimate cost by the president of the regulating body, and another company will have 85 as legitimate cost, which is carried over to the tariff, and the consumers pay for it. And that is it is a negotiation process year by year, or 3 years after 3 years, different, depends.
Okay, and any questions? Yeah, Piotr again.
That is
Two follow-up questions from me, sorry. No, the first question is about Energa, because there was an interview with CEO of Energa who said his guidance for the EBITDA next year is 1.3–1.4 billion. While buying this company, we met a few months ago here, you said it would be 1.5 billion. So how are your expectations against what Energa is communicating to the market or to participants? And second thing, on the trading, because you want to sell 100% of volumes through the exchange, but I understand the buyers will be you as well, your supply company. So who is going to buy it? So effectively, do I understand correctly that you'll sell the power to yourself and sell to the customers, or is this just for the sake of selling it through the exchange, or how the clients will have an ability to buy it? And then can you maybe give a number of how much you subsidize retail customers? So we know that in the G tariff there are negative margins. How much is it a year, this amount? Because we see that you show quite a weakness on the margins in the retail segment. So these three questions.
Okay, so let's start with the easiest one. We cannot comment CEOs of Energa because that's not our company, according to the law. But we will comment it after we finalize the acquisition. So that's my answer, very clear and direct. Second issue, power exchange. Yes, we are on both sides. Power exchange means wholesale market. We will be on both sides on the transaction. From our perspective, it is neutral. The price is neutral to us. Even if it is 1,000 zloty or 10 zloty on the market, we have to buy and to sell, and the EBITDA will be shifted from generation business to wholesale business, or from wholesale business to generation business. So from our perspective, it is completely neutral to sell 100% energy on the market. Yes, we will buy energy on this market and sell to our final consumers. I mean, the buyer will be our retail company, represented by the wholesaler. So we will be on both sides on the market, but it will be traded on the independent exchange.
But there will be one trader doing two trades, so there will be two traders. The distribution guys, because for me, you talk about it a lot.
We cannot act like that. According to the law, it will be so-called Chinese wall. It will be two different teams operated on this market. It is under additional regulations, not only URE but KNF as well, and we cannot trade like that to sell and buy by one person.
Okay, because I was misunderstanding it, because market speculates that you leave quite a big open position going into 2011, so there could be some pressure on prices, but actually you also have a demand power here, where you can buy up the power at whatever cost you really want. So that's okay. Let's move to.
And the last issue was
on the cross-subsidized for the retail customers.
Yeah.
So what's the annual amount?
Okay,
Aaron said it's roughly.
I cannot give you an exact figure, but it's easy to calculate. Volumes multiplied by the difference in prices, G tariff, and wholesale price, plus just a few zlotys for covering operational costs in retail business. So that's the loss. That's the calculation of loss in the retail businesses on G tariff. This loss is smaller than last year because G tariff is a bit higher than it was in 2009. But it is still a loss in retail businesses. But anyhow, when we discuss, because we still compare G tariff to the average price on the wholesale market, average price, but the real price on the real market is the marginal cost, and we cannot take into consideration the average price, but we need to take into consideration the price of power plants or sources which close the loop. In our case, I mean hardcore power plants. So the real price on the real market, on the free market. Let's imagine that we are on the free market in Scandinavia. So if we use it real market here, the average price should be in between 200 and 230. That's the market price in Poland. Cost of generation in power plant, hardcore power plant, is in between 200 and 230.
And can you split it up, this to 200, 230, or how much you think the cost really is? How much is CO2 in the price or not, and how much of OPEX you putting there?
I mean, 200 and 230 refers to different power plants. Of course, there are better hardcore power plants, and they generate at 200, and there are weaker power plants which generate at 230. It depends. It refers on mainly to the age of and the net efficiency of this power plant. That's clear to everyone. But if we say 200, 230, of course it is only 10% of CO2 covered. That's clear. 10% of free allowances.
Then I have no idea how come the electricity price can be. In Germany, CO2 is in the price, right? In electricity price. In Poland, it is not. So going forward, are we going to trade on the power exchange at the 15-10 euro premium against the German power prices?
Yeah, but see that the structure in Germany, the structure of generating electricity, they have much more nuclear power plants, they have much more hydropower plants and renewables as well, which are fully subsidized. That's the reason. They have only 50% based on hard coal and lignite. We have 95.
Okay, thank you very much for explaining.
That's the real reason.
Pytanie z ostatniego rzędu.
Dawid Czopek, BPH TFI. In your third quarter results, have you already included any revenues from insurance from this damage that took place in Turów in August, I think?
No, neither we have included insurance payments from Zido catastrophe nor Turów catastrophe. Both are being worked upon. I don't expect to have some swift payments which would relate out of that, mainly because of business interruption clauses.
Could you tell us something more about amount connected with this insurance?
The aggregate amount is over 300 million zlotys for all the costs or all the damages which are currently under review by insurance companies, and that is in total Kielce, Lublin, Dolna Odra and Turów.
And when can we expect this amount to be in your P&L?
I would hope to have it next year, but it is pretty. It is quite difficult because of the size of PGE Group. We suffer from the fact that we have usually only one insurer or one consortium on the market.
But definitely not this year.
That is one of the reasons why we are going to make a captive insurance company. But definitely, it is very improbable that we will receive some payments this year. So that is my comment. Probably next year, but this is we see it as the additional windfall profit. So it is not something which we budget or count upon or whatever.
Thank you.
And then question from Teresa Schinwald from Raiffeisen. What's your view on the effect of declining reserve margins on wholesale prices? Some market participants assume very strong premiums to the German market, while others believe that arbitrage, for instance, via Swedish line, would not allow that.
Impossible. There will be no arbitrage using Polish interconnection capacities. The line to Sweden is put out of business, simply speaking. The lines which connect us to the UCT countries, Slovak Republic, Czech Republic, and Germany, are being held as reserve because of safety issues for the Polish Republic. So I would not expect to have some big arbitrage amount on the interconnectors, and because of that fact we should be treated as an island, really. Until there are no new 3 or 4 high voltage lines, the situation is unlikely to change.
Any questions from the spot? If not, we may come to the final questions from our very good friend, the anonymous guy from internet.
Anonimowe pytania są?
Wow. Can you possibly disclose expected level of investment in 2011?
Might be it will constitute part of our guidance, but not for today. No, we are talking. Please look at last year capex amounts. That might give you an idea.
And do you see any risk of changes to the free carbon allowances after 2012, following the Czech Republic decision?
No, we are still waiting for the final decision of the Polish government. They have a time until September next year, and as mentioned, we believe to convince them for a better scheme the Czechs took last year, I guess. So we are still under negotiation.
Okay, and the final call for questions? No questions, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.